Hey YouTube, this is Jenny from JQuo Designs. So I am an amateur leather crafter. I've been doing leather crafting and little projects here and there for fun over the past 10 years, but it's been very much on and off with really long breaks, like year-long breaks in those 10 years. So what I wanted to share today is my latest completed project of a rebuild on a Louis Vuitton bag. And I wanted to show you an example of what an amateur restoration looks like, because there are a lot of YouTubers out there who are incredible leather crafters and cobblers and leather makers, and they do such incredible work, but they're professionals. So I wanted to show you an example of what an amateur can do. So I don't have any kind of equipment at home for leather making. All the leather stitching is done by hand, and basically I have the most old school tools there are, mauls and razor blades and all that. So let me tell you a little bit about this bag. So this bag was given to me by my friend about 2 years and some change ago. Actually, it was during the summer of the pandemic in 2020. At the time that she gave me the bag, it was 15 years old, and she had used the heck out of it. Let me show you some pictures of what it looked like when I received it. So here's a picture of the bag as I received it. It is a Louis Vuitton Batignolles, which I pronounced completely wrong. It was made in 2005. And let's just take a look at the condition of the bag. You can take a look. This is what it looked like. So when my friend gave it to me, let me show you a picture of the chap that had already ripped. So one of the chaps ripped off the handles, so she was unable to use the bag without getting it repaired. And actually the chaps on the other side had already ripped before, and she had it repaired by somebody. But oh, here's a picture of the torn chap. She had it repaired by somebody who didn't do the best of job. This was the repair job that the other person did. You can see that the leather in no way matches the original leather. They didn't even bother dyeing it or doing anything to make it match. The stitches are not great. They didn't even put the nice decorative line at the edge of the chap. And the worst part was they stitched through the bag and all the way through the lining, which according to Steve from Beta's Leatherworks is a big no-no. So at the time that she gave it to me, the bag was basically unusable because of that broken chap. And she knew that I liked doing projects like this for fun, so she just gifted me the bag. So that was in 2020. The canvas itself, the monogram canvas, had a lot of damage to it, just from wear over time. Some severe cracks you can see on the side of the bag there. I don't know if this is the same side or the other side, but these are all the areas where the bag was creased on the side, and over time it just wears out. And here's a picture of the corner of the bag. You can see that the piping is worn. Some other corners of the bag. The canvas was just destroyed. Here's one that actually has a hole in it. So she gifted me the bag with no intentions of getting the bag back. It's mine to do what I wanted with it. So I took the bag and I looked at it and I thought, what am I going to do? So this is the completed project. So let me tell you a little bit about what I did. So what I did was this bag, all the hardware is the original hardware. I believe this is probably solid brass hardware, even though I don't know. So all the D-rings, the buckles, the interior ring, the lock, those are all original. What I did do is I did add a little bit of hardware myself. So there's these Chicago screws here that are solid brass, and it's being used as to extend this side strap, because I had actually just followed the pattern of the old strap, but the way that I made this bag, which I'll talk about in a moment, it wasn't long enough. So I couldn't cinch the bag together with the original length straps, so I added an extension. So there, I used this Chicago screw to hold the extension, and then I added feet on the bottom of the bag. These are all solid brass feet, so that the bag can sit off of the surface so that the canvas doesn't touch the bottom and it doesn't wear and get as dirty. So the canvas, the Louis Vuitton monogram, This is all original canvas. I didn't do anything to it. I just kept it as it is. So what I did do was I replaced all of the leather. The leather is placed in a way such that you can see there's more leather than there was originally on the bag. And the reason is because they are covering up all that damaged canvas. So remember those breaks at the corners on the canvas? It's all covered up by these leather pieces. Same thing with this leather piece down at the bottom. It's all covering up stuff. The other thing that I did was all the straps, the chaps, the chaps and the straps bear all the weight of the bag. And so what I did was I put a polyester ribbon inside all of the straps and chaps to give it reinforcement. It prevents the leather itself from stretching, and it bears the weight of the bag, so it takes the stress off of the leather itself, so that these chaps should last a lot longer than the original Louis Vuitton chaps. Modification I did do was I made the shoulder strap drop a little longer. Let me show you. So the strap drop is quite a bit longer than the original was. I think I extended it by maybe a couple of inches, because originally the drop was so low that it was hard, even though my friend was very petite, but it was even hard for her to wear the bag around her shoulder, so I extended the length of it. And I chose the length such that when the strap, the handle is down at the side, that it does not touch the surface. So I made it just long enough to clear the surface, because I could have made it even longer, but I did take that into consideration. Of the leather that I did keep on the original, I kept the original label with the Louis Vuitton branding on it. You can see that the stitch holes are quite close to the edge of the leather label, and so some of these old holes, they were breaking through the side. So what I did was I reinforced. You can see there's a layer of leather behind the label, so I reinforced it to make it last longer. And also there is a little tag with the date code, which I kept as well. It's inside here. The date code is SP0095. And I placed it on the same side, on the interior of the pocket, at the same side as the original had it. So the date code SP0095 means that this bag was manufactured in France, and it was built in September of 2005. So as of today, it's November of 2022. It is a 17-year-old bag. The other thing that I did was I completely replaced the inner lining. Let me show you a picture of the original lining. This is what it looked like. It had that brown color, and it really does look like it's 15 years old. And obviously my friend used the heck out of this bag, so you can see it's stained, it's worn. So I completely replaced the interior lining with this kind of gold colored duck canvas. So it's a nice light color, so it's very easy to see into the bag. And I put 2 pockets in here. The old lining had the old cell phone, the small cell phone pocket, and then 1 pocket on the other side. So this leather is from Rocky Mountain Leather Supply, and I'll put their website in the information below. So they sell this leather called the Vachetta Luxe Luxury Natural Veg Tan Leather, which supposedly may be, or may not be, but I think it's either very similar or it is the type of Vachetta leather that Louis Vuitton uses. So it's a really clean leather. It's vegetable tan, it's undyed, and it has some property to it such that it ages to give you that signature Louis Vuitton honey color as it ages. I specifically bought that kind of leather for this restoration project and another restoration project that I did for myself on the Louis Vuitton bag. So let me show you that really quick. This is a Cabas piano bag that I bought off of Poshmark used, and when I got it, it also had a broken chap on it, but the canvas was in excellent condition. So there's this, I feel like these bags that were made in the early 2000s, I don't know about today and I don't know about other years, but Louis Vuitton doesn't reinforce these weight-bearing chaps, and they don't reinforce their handles. So over time, those chaps get dry and they break. And they do take a long time to break, but eventually they do break. And now I've seen 2 examples of bags that have done this. So I had restored this bag, and there was no real creative input on this particular one. I basically just replaced all the leather off of it. And so when I say I don't have any machines, I don't have any leather stitching machines, so every single stitch that you see on these bags are completely done by hand. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I'm not doing this for making money at all. These are all personal projects just for my own fun and enjoyment and knowledge. So it took me over 2 years to complete this restoration. The reason why is because I made one major mistake, which is that I'm used to using really heavy full grain leathers, like heavy duty as in like 5-ounce leathers. Let me show you one of the bags that I use as my daily carry, my daily driver. This is my favorite bag. It's a mini duffel that I made for myself. This is 5-ounce leather, and this is what I'm used to working with. So when I bought this vachetta leather for these Louis Vuitton restoration projects, I thought, okay, I'll go a little bit thinner, and I asked them to split it down to 4 ounces. That was not thin enough. And because the leather is so thick, it caused a lot of problems and required a lot of problem solving as I was rebuilding. First of all, because it's so thick, there's so many layers here that it became so difficult to make things lie flat, like the binding. Binding is not supposed to be so thick. Stitching this bag was a nightmare, and then trying to flip it inside out was even more of a nightmare. And I'm actually surprised that the bag was managed to be flipped inside out and it didn't do as much damage to the canvas and to the leather as I thought, thank goodness. But what happened was that, you know where the seam is and the piping is, it's super, super thick. So when you reach up to the corner of where everything meets together, in the original bag, like once all the pieces come together, you would make it just kind of lie flat like that, like where my knuckles are here, I guess, or where the seams are, and then this would be the excess fabric would lie flat, and then you can just put the binding across it. But in my case, it was so thick, I could not make it lie flat. It's all like this, like that. So I had to somehow cover up that ugliness, which is where these things came in. So this is, to say, this doesn't look the best, but it's actually hiding all where those seams come together, where all those layers of material come together. It's underneath, there's a corner underneath here. If I were to have done this again, I probably would have split that leather down to maybe 2 ounces or so, just to make this easier. So let me tell you a little bit about why these shapes are the way that they are. So I mentioned before, these are all covering all the damage on the canvas. Here, here. Then this kind of drip shape over here. The shape itself was inspired by some of what Virgil Abloh did. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. By the way, rest in peace to Virgil. I know he passed away. But when he was working at Louis Vuitton and he was designing the men's line, he had all these really cool drip type of designs for the menswear. And so I was inspired by that, and I put it on, let's put it on a woman's bag. And it just happened also that this drip shape can cover up the damage on the canvas behind it. Remember from my old picture, there was damage on where all the creases were on the canvas, so this leather is covering that damage. And the other nice thing is that with the leather coming down here, it's helping to reinforce where the chaps are attached to the bag as well. So that's where that came from. So the other thing was that when I put these little decorative pieces on the corners to hide the horrendous look of all the really thick material come together, and I did this stitching, this was a disaster. So it looks somewhat okay from the outside of the bag, but if you were to see what's underneath it, the stitching on the other side, it is really, really ugly. So what my solution was to put these little, basically glued these little tabs here that I've put a little mark that almost looks like a little bit like an Eiffel Tower, but it's not. These little tabs here are hiding the really ugly stitching underneath. And then I had to stick my own label in, of course, Jayco Designs, and I am in Arizona. Let me do some close-ups of this bag because I am planning to give this back to my friend when she visits Arizona or comes back to visit Arizona this weekend. So after this, I won't have access to the bag anymore. I don't know if anybody here is actually going to watch this on YouTube, but if you do, hope you enjoy it, just to see what an amateur can do. And otherwise, this is a record for me to remember the project that I did. Every stitch that you see here was done by hand. So I have to pre-punch the holes and then do the stitching. The stitching is all saddle stitching, which is probably one of the strongest stitches there are, meaning that you stitch from both sides. So if one side of the stitch breaks, the other side will hold. But I have projects of my own that I made 10 years ago and they're still holding strong. So this thread is called Twist Poly Braid. It's a polyester thread from Rocky Mountain Leather. It is a 0.55 millimeter thread in color banana. I actually really like this thread as I was working with it. I'll show you the other side. The canvas is just a duck canvas. It's got this nice golden color. My friend's favorite color is yellow, so I think she'll like this. But the duck canvas is from Joann, from the Joann fabric area. These Chicago screws are also from Rocky Mountain Leather. They are called, they are the flat bevel design Chicago screws. Very nice, solid brass. And then I have these feet, solid brass feet that are from Amazon. So the other thing that I did do is I added a stiffener on the bottom of the bag. And the reason is because then it prevents the bag from sagging when it has stuff inside of it, and such that the bottom of the canvas doesn't touch the surface that it's sitting on. The feet will take all the weight and take all the stress and all the scratching and stuff over time. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that near the beginning of the video, I was showing you these Chicago screws here, and I was mentioning that the Chicago screws are here to help hold a strap extension. And so, you know, my original straps that I mentioned, I just followed exactly the same length and pattern and everything from the original straps. However, after I finished it, you know, putting all this leather and everything on it, I realized that the original bag was mostly canvas. So this side panels were very floppy, and so you could actually fold the side inwards and you could actually cinch the buckle together. However, because I have so much leather on this bag now, this isn't going to fold inwards. It's going to be, you know, it's going to look like a tote like that. So when the side is pushed out like this, then the original buckle length couldn't close. So that's when I added this extension, strap extension, and that's why there's a Chicago screw. That was the best I could do because I had already sewed in these straps by the time that I realized they were too short. There was no way I was going to take the bag apart. So this was my solution. So regarding the leather edge finishing, when I was looking at the edges of the original leather pieces, and these pieces did not have any kind of edge painting on it. I think it was just left maybe bare. So I didn't put leather edge paint on my pieces either, but what I did do is I did burnish all of the edges. They're all beveled and burnished, and I burnished it with water, toconol, which is a burnishing agent, and everything has been waxed and buffed. So I use this wax. So I bought this wax and the toconol from Rocky Mountain Leather Supply as well. So all the edges are nice and smooth and they feel really good to the hand. All of this has been burnished. You can see it's kind of shiny on the edge. The other thing that I did is that if you look at the original Louis Vuitton leather pieces, you'll see that along the edge, can you see between the stitch hole and the edge of the leather, there is that decorative line that is pressed in. It makes it look nice, like more refined. Let me show you another piece. It's at the strap. Can you see that line? There's that thin line that's between the edge of the leather and the stitching. Sorry, I'm using one hand because my other hand is holding the camera. But it's there's that line there. One more piece. Oh, this one's really obvious. You see that line right there on the edge of the leather? So I did the same on my leather pieces as well. So you can see here, there's that line that's pushed in with a leather creaser. It just makes it look nice, but it is a lot of extra work. Like, this all takes time, and my creaser is some cheapo creaser that I probably bought off Amazon, and it's terrible. And professionals have nicer creasers. They even have machines that do it where I think it adds heat to the creaser, and it makes a nice permanent decorative line. But I did the best that I could. But I did try to, you know, preserve some of the look of the original bag. So yeah, this was the Louis Vuitton Batignolles that I restored, and I'm planning to give back to my friend. I hope she uses this, and she should get, if she does, she should get at least another 15 years of use out of it. I hope that she likes it. This was a fun and very stressful project. I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out, but I had a lot of lessons learned from this. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. Take care. Bye-bye.